Hello, all of my beautiful freaking people. Welcome back to another episode of FML Talk. Today is a very important episode. So important, in fact, it is broken up into two parts. So strap in. We are really going there with a dear friend of mine, Carlie Craig. Welcome to FML Talk.
Oh my God. Wait, how old was the other girl?
19. Can you believe that shit?
Hey, this is Gabrielle Stone.
Good book?
Have you gotten to chapter 6 yet? He did what? 48 hours?
What a dick.
Yeah, but have you seen all the photos on her Instagram?
And this is FML Talk.
Oh, no, she didn't.
Y'all know I love a good self-love cocktail and occasionally an actual cocktail. I have always notoriously hated the taste of alcohol and needed it disguised in a good mixology cocktail until I discovered Neft. Because Neft is a premium vodka in its purest form with non-GMO rye, it has a light taste full of character. Not only is Neft one of the best tasting vodkas I've ever had, it also comes in the cutest packaging I have ever seen. Their unbreakable barrel keeps it chilled for up to 6 hours, making it the perfect drink to take just about anywhere. Join me in adding a little actual cocktail into your self-love cocktail with Neft vodka. Cheers! Ooh, you guys. So we haven't done two parts of an episode since season 1, and that was with Mike Cosson, who is Jana Kramer's now ex-husband. And it's really interesting when I look back at the timing of how that episode played out and what went down in my personal life while we were recording that. The story that we're going to talk about today was broken to me personally, and I was made aware of it the week I recorded those episodes with Mike Cosson. And if you go back to part 1 of that interview, you'll hear me in the intro talking about how weird it is because I'm currently dealing with two very close friends of mine who are going through some infidelity issues. And that was the very tip of the iceberg that we're diving into in Carlie's story. So if you don't know who Carlie Craig is, I am so excited to introduce you to her. She has been on Mad TV. She has had an incredible blossoming career and is really just an incredibly talented and beautiful soul. Everyone that meets her is like, she's so kind, she's so wonderful. And I can attest to that. She is all of those things. We have become very close friends over the past 2.5 years. And when she told me she was finally ready to speak out on what she has gone through, I was not only proud of her, I was a little nervous because Tay and I have been very involved with this entire situation. Involved and entangled, I would say. It's a very tricky web that got weaved. And I knew that it was going to need to be broken up into two parts in order to thoroughly dig through everything that has taken place. So I do want to make everyone aware for both of these episodes, this week's and part 2 next week, there are some trigger warnings. We are going to talk a lot about mental health, about narcissistic abuse, about PTSD, about depression and suicidal ideation. And while there will be moments of levity and girl talk and laughter because that's how Carlie and I roll, it's a very, very heavy thing that this human went through. It is also very interesting to hear how she talks about her ex. Normally when I bring people on, I'm like, okay, let's pick a fake name, or we'll call him, him or my ex. And she has been so traumatized by what she has gone through with this person. You'll hear a lot of times in the interview, she'll refer to her ex as them or they, because she almost has to disassociate in order to recognize or keep separate, if you will, the person that she thought she knew versus the person who she looks at today. So it's a really it's a really heavy one, but the strength that comes through from her healing and her sharing her story is so incredibly powerful. And I can't wait for you guys to hear it. So let's jump into part 1 of Carlie Craig's episode. Carlie motherfucking Craig.
What's up, girl?
Welcome to FML Talk.
I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here. Besides the fact that I'm obsessed with this tiny human and I just think you're so goddamn talented and you're just a little star in the life of Hollywood right now.
Thank you.
But I'm also really, as a friend, really proud of you for being here today because I know it's going to be tough. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm nervous.
Yeah.
Are you nervous?
I'm pretty nervous,
Okay.
but I feel good. You know, I feel like I have had the time to process everything that I've been through. And, you know, the irony that we've been able to get so close and that I was in your life when shit hit the fan, so to speak. And the fact that, you know, you have this community of women and you have an audience and a following based on basically exactly what I went through.
Yep.
I mean, I'm so thankful to you. You've been such a good friend to me. I'm like, oh, am I going to cry in the first 30 seconds? But really, I'm thankful that you, are in my life and have been you've been my support system. Like, you were basically my therapist all summer last year. And I just appreciate you so much.
Oh, I love you. It's so crazy because this situation not only is like directly obviously involved with your life, but I feel pretty heavily involved in it in ways as well, because I was so not in the middle, but like friends with you and your ex. And I felt like I was getting both sides of the situation when it was happening. And so I feel kind of invested in the story as well.
Yeah.
And I have some anger around it as well. Mm-hmm. So I can't even imagine how you feel.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely mixed emotions. It's like every day is different. It's grief, it's anger, it's sadness, but it's also, I mean, I'm so happy to say that I'm finally in a place of hope and optimism and looking to the future. It's been a really long road to finally get here, but you know, I am so lucky to have such an amazing support system in my life where I feel like and I've done a lot of hard work to get to this point. So it's all the things.
All the things.
Yeah.
So take me back to the beginning of this specific relationship that we're going to be talking about and how all of it started. Do we want to come up with a surname, or are we just going to keep it like the ex?
I think it's them. I mean, they're at this point,
the ex.
At this point, they are a distant memory.
Okay.
If I'm being completely honest, and that's so sad for me to say, but you know, as I will be explaining, you know, I've had to go through a real grieving process to put this person, this individual to rest in my memory as if they've passed away, because ultimately what I was dealing with was something I could have never been prepared for. I had no idea who they actually were. So it's been an interesting road. But yeah, I think they is appropriate.
Okay, so he who shall not be named.
Yeah.
So take me back to the beginning of when you guys got together and what that was like.
Sure. So I guess I'll tell you about kind of the time leading up to when we met. I had booked the biggest job of my life on Mad TV the year before. So I booked, sorry, I'm like, my heart's beating really fast.
Okay.
I had booked Mad TV. It was like a series regular credit. I basically had been an assistant leading up to that point. So this was like my career break and I was super excited about it. And that was summer 2016. And then the show kind of just ended, where I had only been in LA for 3 years. And I was like, oh, this is how it works. You come to LA and then you book a job 3 years later, and then that's how it starts. And
I'm a star.
There goes my career, right? And so the series kind of like, we did 8 episodes and then it sort of just ended and tapered off. And I was in a very vulnerable place. I was really sad because it was like, oh my God, all my dreams, like they're not actually happening the way that I had anticipated. Mm-hmm. And I had been riding such a high that whole summer. So then I went to New York that fall, and I did my first ever one-woman show, and I called it Small But Fierce. And it was sort of like I had grown up doing theater, and I was like, all right, well, if I'm not doing sketch, then what do I do? And I'm like, well, I'll just go back to the stage because that's who I really am, and maybe I start doing that. I just need to find a new path because clearly this gig is not going to continue.
Yeah.
So I do the show, I come back home, and then that was like November. And then I came back to LA, and on Christmas Day, he and I had been kind of liking each other's photos on Instagram and stuff. And I had a couple drinks and was like, all right, I'm going to slide in that DM. And I was just like, hey, I see you liking all my photos. Like, what's goody, and like sent him a selfie of me in my jacuzzi. I was
Bold. I like it.
Right. I was also staying at the Mario Lopez house at the time. So I lived in Mario Lopez's old bachelor pad with a group of girls. He didn't live there. I lived there with these girls. And so I was like, oh, let me send him a picture of me in this jacuzzi with these marble columns and like whatever. So we start talking, and then they were out of town for Christmas. And they were like, yeah, let me take you out when we get back. So we went out kind of the first week in January. And something I want to say, and I don't know that I've told you this, but my gut feeling when I met this person was like, they're not the person for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like I met them at a bar or at a restaurant, and they were waiting at the bar, and like, they were like all hunched over and like touched my arm a little too soon. And I was like, like, I don't know.
Not the right vibes.
Not the right vibes. But then, they're handsome and charming. And we sat down, and we both love comedy and started connecting on that level. And I was like, all right, you know what? At the very least, this is going to be a one night stand, and then I'll never see them again.
Right.
And that was literally what my plan was. Like when I was on the date, I was like, I'm never going to see this person again, whatever.
So just go for it.
Yeah. So just go for it. So I went for it, and it was fine. But then that week I had a bunch of auditions, and I was like, yeah, I have a lot of auditions this week. Like, just like, don't talk to me basically when they left the house. And then they texted me like that Friday and was like, how'd your auditions go? And then I was like, huh. And then that's when the relationship began.
Okay.
Much.
So I think it's poignant information that this person, you grew up watching a show he was in.
Yeah, I grew up watching them on TV, doing a comedy show. And so I was very, what's the word? Allured by them.
Not like a fangirl, but like you have this kind of like...
They were on a pedestal.
Schoolgirl crush.
Yeah, totally. They were my childhood crush, no doubt. And so they were on this pedestal.
Yeah. and it's a show that everybody watched. I mean, I watched it.
Yeah. Anyone who's a millennial has seen it. And I was like, oh my God, like my childhood crush wants me. Like how lucky am I that this person wants to be with me? Like this is, and again, I had just come off of this whole like depressive episode, low-key got kind of manic as well when I was in New York, because I was just so sad about the Mad TV thing ending, and I was so fragile. So then when I met them, I was like, oh my God, that's why Mad TV didn't continue, because I have found this person and it's all falling into place for me.
Oh, interesting. Like the universe divinely made all of this happen
100%.
For me to end up with my person.
And both of us were very spiritual, so that was how we connected, was like, oh, it all happened in divine timing. And there was quite a big age gap, but it was sort of like, oh, neither of us would have been ready if we met at a different time in our lives. But yet I was only 25. So I was very looking back on it, vulnerable. And so And again, I think I was just so excited to have something going for me that was like something to look forward to, that I sort of like, that was when the rose-colored glasses got put on.
Yeah. Yeah. So you guys start dating.
Yeah.
And how does the relationship go?
Well, the beginning, it was like a big bomb was dropped in the first, like when we first made it official. So when we first decided that we were going to be together, I was about to go to New York to audition for Wicked for Glinda on Broadway. And I was like, and it was one of those self-tapes that I had done that week after we went on our first date. And they had called me in from that self-tape. And
Yes,
so
girl.
I was about to fly to New York and audition for my dream role on Broadway. Like, again, only 25 years old. And I'm like, had never auditioned for a Broadway show before. And I'm like, how is this happening to me? But whatever, I'm so excited. But then I was kind of sad because I was like, but I have this great thing going with them. And I like, what if I book a Broadway show? You know, like then this relationship would never happen and I won't get to be with my childhood crush. Like, so that was sort of in the back of my head, going to New York. And before I left, I said, hey, it would make me feel so great if before I go, we make this like official. I just want to know that like in my heart, we're together no matter what happens.
Yeah.
Like say I kill it and I book it. Like I want this to continue because we have such a strong spiritual connection. I'm so in love with you. It's only been a month. And I just want to know that. And he's like, yeah, we're together. We're together. So I go to New York. We're FaceTiming the whole time. And I'm like, man, I've got this person in my corner. I'm so just excited. And like, man, I'm living my freaking dream right now.
Yeah.
I'm auditioning for Glinda on Broadway and I've got like the man of my dreams. So I come back and they had offhandedly mentioned, some people are going to be pretty upset that we're together. And I didn't really know what that meant. But then we posted a picture together on Valentine's Day as like our official announcement that we were together kind of.
Yeah.
I'm so excited because I'm like, everybody from my high school is going to see that I'm with this person. And like, how cool do I look? I was voted headed to Hollywood in high school. I'm like, this could not be more headed to Hollywood. But anyway, I digress. So we post this picture and within like 10 minutes, his phone is blowing up. And I'm like, he's like, I got to take this. Frazzled, leaves. And I'm like, what's going on? So then they come back inside and they're like, listen, remember how I said some people will be very upset that we're together? And I said, yeah. And they said, well, when you were in New York, I did something. And I said, what are you talking about? And he explains to me that there's this girl, let's call her Sarah.
Okay.
That
side note, that's my best friend's name. So no hate to you, Sarah. No, we'll go with Sarah.
Sarah?
It's fine.
Okay.
I love Sarah, but it's a basic name. So
yeah. So Sarah, I've been seeing Sarah. Sarah helped me through a really hard time. I didn't know how to break things off with her, but we slept together while you were in New York.
Devastating.
And I'm like, and I should have walked away in retrospect. My gut was like, what the fuck? Like, I was so, I was betrayed, but I mean, now not on any level now I've gone through, but then I was like, why would they do that? Like, I didn't really understand it, but the way that it was twisted and the way that I understood it was, and what I remember saying to them was, what I see here is that you really cared about this other person and you wanted to treat them with kindness and you didn't know how to navigate this. So here's the deal. If you break things, I need you to choose. Like you need to break things off with Sarah and then we can be together. And we're just going to call February 15th our anniversary instead of February 14th.
Yeah.
And so that's how our relationship began. So,
and he agreed to do that.
He was like crying. Oh my God, thank God. I want you. I'm in love with you. I don't care for this other person. This other person was like, just whatever. You are the one that I want. I want a future with you. I want everything with you. And it was just such this explosive feeling of love and
staking the claim and like proclamation for love.
Yeah.
And shouting from the rooftops.
Yeah. And this is my person. This is going to be my husband. Yeah. And we're only a month in and we've already agreed that like, this is it, And so I'm like, you know what? Not like I'm going to let it slide, but I was like, okay, well, I made myself very clear, and I said, and I do not want you talking to that person, because all they would tell me about Sarah was they're manipulative, they have bipolar disorder, they're all these things. And also at the time, I thought that I had I was on the bipolar spectrum, which now I've figured out I am not, which we can get into later.
Yeah.
But at the time, he was like, yeah, she's unstable, she's crazy, she's all these things. And I was like, well, that sounds like some person that you probably don't even really want in your life if they're causing you this much stress and anxiety.
Yeah.
So ultimately, that was the agreement, was, okay, we'll be together, but you break things off with this woman.
Yeah. So from there, you guys have a long-term relationship. How long?
Ultimately, we wound up being together for 4 years.
Okay. And during those 4 years, now looking back on it, what were the red flags that you see? You're like, how much fucking time do you have,
how
Gabrielle?
much time do you have? I would say the first red flag was seeing the way that he talked to his mom on the phone, where he was yelling at her and was very verbally abusive. I said, listen, if that's the way that you speak to your mother, this is not going to work. Yeah. So seeing the way that he talked to his family was just something that I didn't really agree with. And then I would say another major red flag was probably how they acted in private versus in around other people.
Yeah.
So like, at home, they would have these like outbursts or like, for lack of a better term, temper tantrums. Like they never physically laid a hand on me, but it was like, they looked like they were going to punch a wall and then like would stop right before they punched the wall. And I'm like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
And then, but then like out in person, it was like happy-go-lucky charmer guy. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I don't think, and the way that I viewed it was, oh, they're a child actor. Like, they had a very specific kind of upbringing. Like maybe this is just a quirky thing about them. Like maybe that's just the way that they are, that they, have this anger problem, or they have all these like issues.
Yeah.
But then to the outside world, they present a certain image.
Yeah.
And I just kind of accepted that for what it was. And looking back, I tolerated a lot of behaviors. And I've had to since look at myself and think, why did that feel like a safe environment to me?
Right.
But yeah, I think those were probably the main two that I was like, this isn't really how normal people act.
Yeah. So when I met him, it was on a film that we were acting in together, and the whole cast then went out, and you came out with us, and I was like, who is this fucking little blonde ball of fire that is like
face down, ass up,
jiggling her ass to fucking like gnarly hip hop in this club. And I was like, this is my people.
Yeah.
And we just clicked, and everybody loved you. And I remember looking at him that night and being like, dude, your chick is fucking rad. And he was like, I know, I don't know how I got this lucky. Like everybody loves her. She's incredible. And that was very much so how it always was whenever outside people looked in at you two. And
which I didn't realize.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And he talked about you in very high regard all the time. Mm-hmm. And so we became really close, over the year and a half. And then when quarantine hit, we were like
a pod.
Quarantine buddies. Mm-hmm. We were like, okay, you guys are being safe, and we know that, and we're being safe, and we know that. So you and Tay and I and him would hang out often, and had some really like bonding times together.
Oh yeah.
And when was it when because I mean, during this time, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys were talking about getting married, you were taking vacations together, like you were living together and then moved into a new place together.
Yeah. I mean, they were using like the pandemic and quarantine as an excuse as to why we weren't engaged yet, like the money or whatever. And originally, when we had first gotten together, we had always talked about timelines. We were like, okay, probably around 3 years together, we'll get engaged, then we'll get married and then have a baby. Like it'll all probably be within like 5 years.
Yeah, that's normal as couples.
Which is normal, which means by now I would have a baby, right? Yeah. If this had continued.
Right.
Or stuck to the timeline that we had originally like talked about. But yeah, it was all, okay, we're, through the whole relationship, there was a lot of, well, when we have properties in this city and that city, and when we have, all of these, it was a lot of future faking. Now looking back and knowing what that is, right. These were all delusions. These were all things that I was never going to achieve because of the abuse and how I was being held back financially, how I was being held back career-wise, emotionally. So much about it I reflect on, and I'm like, man, I really believed them.
Yeah. So I guess we'll start from my perspective on the day that we got that call, and then you can take me through what led up to that call.
Sure.
So I got a call from you, and I could immediately hear it in your voice, and you were in tears, and you were like, hey, can you and Tay come over? He has some really devastating news that he needs to share with you. Mm-hmm. And to paint a picture for people listening as how, because people know Tay and I really well, and the standard we hold our inner circle to, let me paint a picture as to who we thought this was. We got that call and we got in the car immediately to come over, and we looked at each other, and I was like, okay, either he's in massive trouble financially, or someone has died or is dying. Like those were the only 3 options that were plausible in each of our brains. Mm-hmm. Now looking back on it, if anyone were to hear a girl call and say, he has to tell you something, it's terrible, 9 times out of 10, they'll be like, oh, he's cheating. Oh, something, there's been infidelity. Something's happened like that. Nowhere in our brain was that a possibility at all. So we show up to your house, you come outside, you're a mess. And the first thing you say to us is, please just be kind to him. Please just show him kindness and love. And we were like, what the fuck is going on? So walk me through what happened that week leading up to you guys making that phone call.
So the week leading up to the phone call, I was really at my wit's end because he had reconnected with Sarah, and he had mentioned Sarah like back in 2018. He was like, listen, I know that you said you don't want us to be together, but or you don't want me to see this woman, but she helped me through a tough time. That's all he would say, is she helped me through a tough time, and I want this person in my life. And I'd say, okay, you can go get lunch with her at Chop Stop or whatever the fuck. Like, I'm trying to be the cool girl. Right. I'm like, okay, it's been a year at this point. Fine. He'd come back and talk about, oh, she got these like duck lips, and she has gotten ass implants, and she has these new boobs, and she looks terrible, and it's so sad. And he framed it in a way where it was like, man, she's just as toxic as, I ever knew. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds really sad. Like, again, why do you want a friend like this? I don't know. And again, like, that's not knocking anybody that gets plastic surgery. All I'm saying is like, he framed it in a way where it was like, this person's deeply troubled and has these severe mental health issues and body dysmorphia and all these things, and they're really a lost person. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, okay, that is really sad. So then I didn't really hear about her after that, but I would see them like DMing on Instagram, and I'd say, hey, like, that makes me really uncomfortable. I told you I would prefer if you don't talk to Sarah. And he'd say, well, it's only memes. Like, you can look at our conversation. It's only memes. And I'm like, but that doesn't matter. It makes me uncomfortable. And you're my partner, and I'm telling you, that this isn't okay. I don't trust this person.
This is a boundary.
This is a boundary that I need to be set. And I was always made to feel bad about that, right? So over the years, like that would just continue. That behavior never changed. And he came to me in June during quarantine and all frazzled. And again, we had been isolated together. And he comes to me one day and he says, "Remember my friend Sarah?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "She's threatening to kill herself. I don't know what to do. I have never dealt with something like this before. I've told you about how she has all of these issues and I am just so scared. I don't know what to do." And I'm like, "How serious do you think this is?" And he's like, "Pretty serious. She's threatening to kill herself tonight." And I said, "Okay, be safe. Go check on her, see how she's doing, wear your mask, because it's also quarantine." And I'm like, this was June 2020. This was like, stay the fuck inside. Yeah, stay inside. So he comes to me, he's all frazzled, and then I let him go, and I'm like texting him like the suicide prevention hotline. I'm sending him a list of like all of these, resources, and like, if she does this, this is what you do. If she is talking like this is what you do. Because I also had a manic breakdown when I was 18. So I had been in a crisis situation before. And so he was visibly stressed out or distressed, and I was like, all right, well, whatever I can do from afar to be helpful, like I'm gonna do. So I kept sending these things, and I was like,
and that's just the type of person you are to be like, not that Sarah deserved any sympathy from you after the past that they had, but you're such a kind person that still you were like, here's some resources. What can I do to help? Like,
yeah, I was just like, go, and then let's talk about it when you get home. And so he ultimately was there for like 5 hours, and then came home at like 3 a.m. And I was like, "Is everything okay?" And he's like, "I'm really glad I went over there. She's doing okay, but whatever." So then it continued. He would keep getting these phone calls, or he would be texting her, and his whole body would be like this while he's on the couch. And I'm like, "You have told me multiple times this person's manipulative and toxic. You cannot be that clearly this person has a lot going on internally, and you can't be that person that they depend on to call you if they're going to off themselves. That's not the person you want to be for them." And I don't want to not have sympathy for your friend, but like, this is becoming a lot, Yeah. And so, so this continued for, so I called you guys on like beginning of January, right after New Year's, and it was like New Year's Day or the day after New Year's. Yeah. And this was in June of the previous year. So that whole 6 months, I mean, there's so much that happened in that time. But essentially it was just this unwavering, like, push pull of me being like, this friendship starting to make me uncomfortable. I told him, I'm starting to feel really depressed, and I don't know why. And unfortunately, by sharing that, I feel like it gave them ammunition, because then the following months were, all right, well, maybe you should talk to your therapist about why this friendship makes you uncomfortable. It's probably because of your high school boyfriend. You told me he was a little, crazy, right? And then he would keep saying, I would say, I really don't want you to go over there. And he'd look me dead in the eyes or hold my face and say, "Are you sure it's okay I go over there?" Until I was frozen. And I'd say, "Yeah, sure." Yeah. So I just I also then started questioning my own reality, because I was like, am I being a crazy bitch for wanting to get in the middle of this friendship? And then that was where I was at that point.
And that's a prime example of how harmful gaslighting can be. To look at your partner and use things from their past to say, maybe you should go back and see your therapist and maybe you're the problem here, is insane.
And and we'll get into the whole part about my dog passing away, because I think that like started to blow the lid off of.
Yeah. So we're kind of there.
We might as well just go in there. Yeah. So I had a pup, Cornelius, who's my angel, and
love you, Cornelius.
Love you, Corny. And Cornelius was like my child, Corny was my baby. And he had started having these emotional outbursts at our old apartment. Like he was like slamming dishes one day and was just like, I'm going to lose it, like this quarantine. And I'm like, listen, why don't we try to find a different apartment? We're in this big luxury building, which I couldn't afford, side note. And okay, let's get out of here. So I find us this like beautiful 4-bedroom condo for the same price as our 2-bedroom. We decorate it like to a T, and I'm doing all these things to try to fix whatever it is that he's going through emotionally, because I'm like, maybe we both need an office. Maybe we just need to be separated a little bit, or like, let's figure this out. So I find us like this condo, and then I even went to the condo one night and was like, let's have like a little sage ceremony. Like, let's do a little thing. And he had like another outburst then and was like, I don't have time to do this. I don't want to fucking do this. And I'm like, why are you acting like this? Like, I was doing everything in my power to help the situation and help this person get through the pandemic.
Yeah.
That's how I was seeing this.
Yeah.
So we get the condo all set up, and then a month to the day that we move into that condo, out of nowhere, my dog is 9 years old, perfectly healthy, has 3 seizures back to back, and I have to put him down.
Yeah. And for people that are listening, like that would be like me losing Finn. Like it's like literally your child that moved from state to state with you and was like your rock.
Yep. I found him in my college town and brought him out to LA with me and everything. Like he was my emotional support animal.
Yeah.
And so we have to put him down, and we're driving he's at the hospital, and he and I are driving to go put him down, and he's texting somebody. But at that point, I have no energy to confront them. I'm focused on the fact that I'm losing my baby animal, like my child. And so we go, and like, it was horrible, like to have to sit there and like, make that choice, but I did. And so anyway, we come home, and the next day, I'm crying at my desk and just grieving, and like I'm in shock that I had a perfectly healthy animal, and then 48 hours later he's gone.
Yeah.
And
it was a traumatic 48 hours of you paying like thousands and thousands of dollars to try and
keep
save
him alive. Yeah. It was really awful. And then he comes into my office and says, hey, can you come out here for a second? And I walk out, and I don't know what's happening, but I go to the front door, and there's a woman outside of my home with flowers and a mask on. And I'm like confused. I'm like, who is this? First of all, like, and then I look at him and I see his face, and he's just like shell shocked. And I'm like, what's going on? And I realized that it's Sarah, and I had never met Sarah. So I was like, why is Sarah here?
Yeah.
Then she steps into my house and is like, I can't even imagine what you're going through. Oh my God, can I give you a hug? She hugs me, and I'm like standing there frozen, and I'm just so confused and devastated, and so she hands me the flowers. They have like dog treats wrapped to them for our other dog, Otis, and then she's like, if you need anything, like, let me know. Anything you need at all, like, please let me know. And it was really bizarre.
And at this point, all you know is that this is someone who he slept with the, first month you guys were together, and now has like this weird toxic friendship with whenever she freaks out and says she wants to kill herself.
Correct. That's exactly how I viewed it. Yeah. And that this was
which is still weird that she's showing up at your house.
Yeah.
Even in those terms.
Right. And I'm like, how does she know where we live?
Right.
Also. So the first thing that he says to me after she leaves is, wasn't that so nice of her? Mm. I'm like shaking even talking about it because I have night terrors about this incident a lot.
Yeah.
And sorry.
You're good.
It's like reliving the fucking, it's like a horror movie, honestly. Like I didn't even know what to make of that. And so she leaves. He's like, it wasn't that so nice of her. Then I start like, whatever, that whole time period was just awful. And I'm so sad over losing Cornelius. And 3 weeks later, her dog passes away. And so he's like, I'm going to go over there and check on her. And meanwhile, like, I am still not healed yet. I'm still like grieving, like it's like my baby is gone. And so we got into a huge argument because I said, that was honestly like the first time that I really truly spoke up about how I actually felt about the friendship, because up until that point I was trying to be empathetic and understanding, and I was always tiptoeing around it because, okay, this person's unstable. I have sympathy for them because, I've been through my own mental health challenges, so I treaded very carefully up until that point. Mm-hmm. But that was the point that really rocked me, because I was like, this is a girl you used to fuck. Yeah. And you're going over there when I'm not healed yet, and you're making sure she's okay. Yeah. Like, this really hurts. And I don't understand. And then it became, well, I didn't know that made you that uncomfortable. And I'm like, well, how the fuck am I supposed to feel? Mm-hmm. Like I love you, and I don't want to be the person to tell you who you can and cannot be friends with, but this is like crossing a line, because this is driving a wedge between us. And I feel very betrayed right now, So I didn't really understand it. And after that, I didn't feel sexy. I didn't feel like I was crying. I couldn't do anything without crying for a month. Yeah. And I went to him one day and I said, I don't feel sexy. I don't feel, we haven't had sex in a while. And, I'm about to go home for Thanksgiving for 10 days. I hate to think this way, but I really don't want you spending time with Sarah while I'm gone. I don't know why, but anytime you're texting her, I've got this visceral reaction that happens inside of me. My stomach flips upside down. I feel incredibly uncomfortable, and I don't trust them, because all you've told me is how toxic they are. And I can see how it's weighing down on you. I can see how your body tenses up every time you're talking to them. This is not a healthy friendship for you. And I don't feel comfortable being out of town. It's scary for me. And I don't want them to make a move on you. And he was like, shh, no, absolutely not. Like, I promise I will not go over there. You're my babe. I love you. You have nothing to worry about. And I'm like, okay, you're right. I'm sorry. I'm probably overreacting, So then I go home to Florida for Thanksgiving, and he had said something weird before that, like, yeah, well, you're leaving me for 10 days. And I was like, we've been together all year, like, and I haven't seen my family at all, like, whatever. So that was kind of odd. I go home to Florida, and while I'm there, he finds some sort of reason why he's going to go over to her house. And at the time, our other dog, Otis, had this like massive infection on his side. And he was telling me, yeah, I'm going to, just so that I don't have to worry about it, I'm going to put Otis in doggy daycare, and I'm going to go over because it's her birthday the night before Thanksgiving. And I'm like, I really don't want you putting Otis in doggy daycare. I really would prefer you not. And he just talked his way around it and was like, this is what I'm doing. And then I'm going to go over for her birthday.
Like, why even tell you? You're out of town. At that point, it's like, why are you even saying, okay, I'm going to do this, and convincing you that it's fine?
Right. When I was like, I'm out of town, there's nothing I can do about it. He's responsible for our animal, so he's going to do whatever he's going to do. But I'm like, I'd really prefer not. And he's like, no, it'll be fine. It'll actually be good because, I don't know how long I'm going to be there, blah, blah, blah. So it's her birthday that night, and you're just so mad.
I just can't.
So I'm texting, tell her I say happy birthday. He's texting me, yeah, this is a picture of her foster dog. And I'm like, oh my God, so cute, have fun, you too. Like, I'm just trying to be nice. It's her birthday, whatever. She just lost her dog. I also wrote her a note for her dog because she had brought me flowers. So I wrote a note saying like, here are things that have helped me get through me losing my animal. So I was like, just being nice or whatever. And so then I come back from out of town and Otis will not go near him, our dog. Otis will not even go close to my ex. And the wound on his side is severely infected. And the way that he was acting, the thought did cross my mind. He's acting like this person's cheating on me. Like the dog is acting like, but then I was like, no, he's probably just sad about Cornelius. This infection on his side needs to be taken care of. And also, what have you been doing for the 10 days I was gone? Like, why didn't you tell me that it was this bad? And why didn't you take him to the vet?
Yeah.
So then whatever, we get the thing handled. And then I'm trying to like research getting a puppy. And then you hooked us up with Wagmore and we got Oliver 2 days before Christmas. So we, take all, and also mind you, during this time period, then it becomes, listen, I really want you to extend an olive branch and reach out to Sarah. I've told you that I really want this person in my life. And it really does bother me that you haven't made the effort to become friends with her when this would mean a lot to me.
If you guys aren't watching this episode on YouTube, I'm sure that your facial expressions are similar to mine, where your fucking like jaw is on the floor and you're like, how the audacity, like how does that even make sense to ask that of someone?
Right. And especially with all the buildup and everything that was like, this person is toxic, volatile, all these things. And you're asking me to be friends with them. I've had crazy roommates. I've had crazy exes. I'm sitting here and I'm saying, I don't like giving people like that access to me.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a hard no. And it was like, I was made to feel so bad that I didn't want to be friends with a person like this.
Yeah.
And so guilty. And then that was where like the therapist comment came out about, well, maybe you're uncomfortable because, and I'd say, I really need you to set boundaries with this person, because this is getting out of hand. And it was just an endless loop where I'd say, I need you to set a boundary. And they'd say, okay, I'm going over there to set a boundary. And then they'd be there for 4 hours. And I'm like, what the fuck? So then I start talking to my therapist and, it's like, I didn't want to see what was right fucking in front of me.
Right. But again, this is coming from a person who even we were like, not him. There's no way. And
so we get the puppy, we have Christmas. There's still this like ongoing, just like icky feeling, like this dark cloud. And I'm stressed at my job. I'm feeling so unhappy. And I feel like I'm in this endless loop of just fighting for our relationship. And I'm sitting here thinking, we're approaching 4 years and we're not engaged yet. Like what is going on? And he even went as far as to be like, can you just trust me and know that you're going to be my wife? It's fine. I can tell you're starting to put pressure on me. And I'm like, it's not that. I'm excited to be your wife. And I want to know like I have timelines that I want to hit. I want to start a family. I want to do things like, what are we doing?
Yeah. We were told as well that he was saving for a ring.
Right. And so this was my one. And so then 2 days after Christmas, we go to get a COVID test, like in Santa Monica, and we bring the little puppy with us, and he gets a text that like a Harry Potter novel, like long ass text on his phone. And I'm like, I see it come through because he's driving, which also he would do that often. He'd be texting and driving. Mm-hmm. And I know he would be texting Sarah. And I see the text come through and I'm like, you know what? I'm just so over it at this point. I'm going to just see if he says he's going to go over there to check on her, as he would put it. I'm going to go check on her. I'm going to go check on her. So we had plans that day to like do all sorts of shit, like, you know, just setting goals for the new year and all these things. And he comes to me at like 3, you know, we're home for maybe an hour. It's like 3 p.m. And he's like, you know, I'm going to go check on Sarah. I was going to go over there this weekend anyway. So I'm just going to go over there and like check on her.
What? Like she's a fucking infant?
Right.
I don't understand.
Also, mind you, this woman is apparently in her mid-30s. So I don't know. So I'm like, whatever. So all of it is so confusing to me. I'm just like, okay, yeah, like, you know, let me know when you're back because we do want to do that goal setting and stuff. And hours go by. Like I sit and I watch the whole Ariana Grande special, the whole Taylor Swift special, and he still hasn't texted me anything. And I'm like, he's cheating on me. Like I felt it in my heart. And then that song by Taylor Swift, The One, came on. And it's like, it would have been fun if you were the one. And I was like, he's not the one. Like, that was the moment that I was like,
this is not it.
This is not it. Why would somebody who cares about me treat me like this? What is going on?
Yeah.
Why is this person a priority? This makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
Then I get really upset with him that night when he gets back. And I ask him to pick us a pizza because then I'll know when he's going to be coming home. And it takes like a whole other hour and a half for him to even like give me a real ETA. And we get on the phone and he's like, well, I was only there for 2 hours. And I go, it was 5.5. Because how many times had he done that to me before? And I was starting to notice, oh, he's been telling me, no, I was only there for this amount of time. He even went as far as one time to say, well, I've only gone over there like a couple times. And I'm like, you've gone over there. I've allowed you to go over there. And I hate to put it that way, at least 20.
Yeah.
And you're framing it as you've only been there a few times. Like this makes no sense.
Yeah.
So then he has this like severe breakdown, like crying, shaking, sobbing, has to take a walk around the block, like full-blown breakdown, sobbing in my arms. And I'm like, wow, this pandemic's really getting to him. Right. Like that's what I'm thinking, but I'm like, I don't even know what to make of this, but all I'm thinking is, you know, I really need to do something. Where my head was, I really need to do something nice for him because obviously he's having a really hard time and like, we got to figure this out. But then like the next few days, I started talking to my therapist about it and she was like, you know, you need to start asking these questions because clearly we've been working on this for the past 4 months and his behavior isn't changing. So like, these are the things you need to ask, like why he doesn't have any other female friends, X, Y, and Z. Like he, you know, the list, there was a whole little list of points for me to hit. So it's New Year's Eve and we're about to, we're going to celebrate at home. And I'm like, I need to talk to him about this. Like I need to present these questions that my therapist helped me put together because I need to understand what the fuck is going on. And I need to tell him and be firm because little Carlie Craig never stands up for herself. I'm always tiptoeing around other people, making sure everyone else is okay. That's what I kept doing up until this point was just make sure Sarah's okay, make sure he's okay, you know. But I was like, no, what I need is for him to stop going over there. And I need to tell him, no, you are going to send a text message saying that you are not going over there anymore.
Yeah.
And they come in and they're like, I almost just got in a car accident. And I'm like, okay, fine, you're frazzled, but I'm visibly upset. And they're like, well, are you upset? And I'm like, no, it's okay. Like, you almost just got in a car accident. Like, we can talk about it later. So then I like retreat a little bit. Yeah. And they're like, no, like, what's going on with you? And this is after I had told them multiple times, like, I feel disrespected as your partner. And so I reiterated that, you know, why is this person a priority to you? You don't have other female friends. this person I know is in love with you. And they've been in the picture from the beginning. And this is something that you promised me that they were not going to be in your life, yet here we are. And I feel like it's this never ending loop where I'm banging my head against the wall. I'm isolated from my friends and my family. It's just you and me, babe. And I feel betrayed as your partner. We're in the same house, but I don't even know. I feel not heard. I feel not listened to. And I just have tears streaming down my face. I'm like cutting lemons to make us cocktails. Like I'm literally just sitting there sobbing. And he is just like, his face is devastated and he starts tearing up and he's like, I'm so sorry I hurt you. And he says, let's talk about it over the weekend. I'll give you some context, but I don't want to have a gnarly conversation tonight. So let's just have fun and enjoy each other's company.
Mm-hmm. Like, I know I'm about to explode both of our lives. So let's just have one last hurrah.
Basically.
Yeah.
So we both get freaking blasted. And
did you guys have sex that night?
No. And then at midnight, like when the clock was, he was acting really weird all night, like just depressed and like moody. But we were like, you know, watching like the Joel McHale and Kevin Jeong, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, like their whole like funny special. And we're like clicking back between the specials. And then, yeah, he was just kind of in like a weird mood. And then when it came time for midnight, I was like ready to kiss him. And he was just like filming the ball dropping and didn't like turn to kiss me right away and like wasn't present with me.
Filming the ball dropping?
On the TV for his Instagram story.
I cannot.
And I'm like, that's odd.
Well, yeah.
So
it's not like you're in fucking New York and you're like, oh my God, the ball's going on. You're like, this is a TV screen.
Yeah. So then we kiss and then whatever, we pass out. And I wake up the next morning and like, I'm hungover. Yeah. But I'm sick to my fucking stomach because I know what's about to happen.
Yeah.
And I just threw up all morning. And then he was very quick to jump up and be like, hey, let me go get us like our coffee and our little hangover cure. Like we would do micheladas and, you know, let me go do these things. And I'm like, why is he so quick to jump up and do all these things? And he's like volunteering to do these nice things for us, but he's hungover as shit. He's so guilty right now. And I can see it unfolding. So like he comes back, we take a nap, and we have sex. And I think to myself, this is the last time like that we're going to be together. And I'm thinking that. And he's like, I was going to go hang out with my friend, but do you want me to stay here tonight? And I'm like, yeah, you know, we have like a big weekend ahead of us to like talk about what you said we were going to talk about. I'd like if you stayed home. So he said, okay. And then I said, and we need to talk about this Sarah situation. And they came out of the bathroom and they were like, listen, I don't really want to have a gnarly conversation right now. And I said, no, we're talking about it right now. And I sat them on the bed and I said, everything that I already talked about, like everything I had said the night before. And I said, you know, I don't even want to think about this, but has she ever made a move on you? Like, why is this person a priority? And I knew this would get them. I said, you look like you have something to tell me. Mm-hmm. And then he said, I've never seen your face look like this before. I've never seen you this upset. And I'm like, yeah, I'm really upset. You need to tell me what the fuck is going on. Mm-hmm. And so we moved to the living room and they're shaking and he's like, let me just paint the let me just give you context. Let me just tell you. And he starts going into this talk about like, when I was growing up, X, Y, and Z, and started telling me like things about like how he had a tough childhood and stuff. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what is going on? And he just suddenly goes, babe, I didn't mean to blow up our life. And I'm like, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. And he goes, I got myself into a really bad situation. And I said, what does that mean? And they're like, and I go, you cheated on me? And he just looked at me and I was like, with Sarah? And he just didn't have anything to say. And I'm like, whoa, like, is that what's been going on this whole time? Like, it was too much to wrap my head around. And so I like go get a drink of water and I'm like breathing. Oh my God. And I'm like, what's the bad situation? And he's just looking at me and I'm like, is she pregnant? And he just looks at me and I'm like, what? She's pregnant? And he goes, no, well, she got pregnant in June, but took care of it. And I go, so she's not pregnant? And he just looks at me. And I go, so she's pregnant again? And he goes, yeah.
In June. So not once, but twice this happened. And it had been going on for at least that long.
And I'm sitting here being like, wait, so I was right the whole time.
Yeah.
Like, I've been telling you, don't go over there. Like, this person is toxic. This person is trying to drive a wedge. And I was just so severely gaslit.
Yeah.
And all I could think was like, I got to get the fuck out of here. Because if you're like, this is way deeper than I could ever conceive. Like, this is way, way deeper than what I could have ever. This was not in the realm of possibility.
Yeah. And let's like remember that this chick showed up at your house
and stepped in my home
when your dog died, brought you flowers, hugged you, knowing that she had gotten pregnant and aborted his child. And then he turned to you and said, wasn't that nice? Can't you extend an olive branch? Unfucking believable.
Yeah. And I was just like so shell shocked because I'm like, okay, what do I even do with this? Like, again, this was so out of the realm of possibility. Like, this was my one. This was my husband. This was my father of my kids. And so I leave. He's like trying to barricade me, kind of like, he's like, no, wait. Like, let me explain. And I'm like, I need to get out of here. So I go to a friend's house and I'm like, I don't even know what to make of this. So they're like coaching me through it. And I basically tell him to get a hotel, let me know when the dogs are locked up. I was right around the corner. I'm like, let me know when you're gone so I can come to my home and
figure my life out.
What do I do?
Yeah.
What do I do?
And this is a brand new place that you guys had just moved into and signed a lease for. You had just painted all the offices.
Designed it, painted every single room to perfection. This was our starter home, which means that they had a thing going on and she had already gotten pregnant the first time when we went and we moved to the condo. So that's why you were having all these emotional outbursts, and that's why you were making me feel bad about all the things you're making me feel bad about. I just couldn't believe this had happened. And I was like, I don't even know what I'm going to do. Like, do I stay in my apartment that I just worked so hard to make perfect? I can't afford this place on my own, like a 4-bedroom place by myself. Like, I don't really know what to do.
And all those memories that are now there.
Totally.
And tarnished.
And so now I'm the next couple of days were just so the next morning he comes over and I couldn't sleep, and I got like a list together and I was like, well, I'm leaving you, so here are all the things that we need to tie up. And I went down the list and he's like, well, if you would ever consider staying. And I'm like, you lost me. This is disturbing behavior. And I said, I am horrified. I haven't even begun to dig into what this actually is. And I am just horrified at your behavior. And I am walking away from this situation. I'm not here to help you deal with a alleged pregnancy. This has nothing to do with me. This is all your situation to deal with. Like, I'm done. I'm out of here. I was so understanding about checking on this person who had all these mental health issues, but you were fucking her the whole time.
Yeah.
Looking me dead in the eye saying, are you sure it's okay I go over there? And just scaring me to the point of not being able to stand up for myself anymore.
Okay, so as I said up top, it's a lot, and we're slowly sifting through all the things. And if you thought this part 1 had some twists and turns, the bombs that will go off in part 2 and the repercussions of those bombs are really something to behold. We sat down for this interview and I was nervous because this is me talking to someone who I care about so much and I've seen what she's gone through. And we're also talking about someone who used to be a very close friend in my life. So there was a lot of mixed emotions around it all. And next week's episode is really going to not only shock you in a lot of ways, but empower you in a lot of ways. And if you are resonating with anything that was said in this episode or recognizing any of these red flags in a relationship that you are in, please pay attention to them and seek some guidance and some help. We will finish up with part 2 next week. As always, make sure you are subscribed so you never miss an episode. Keep up with us on Instagram at FML Talk Podcast for all the behind the scenes fun and the giveaways that we do. Get ready for some fucking awesome new merch that's coming your way later this month. It is going to be some of my favorite pieces that we have ever done in this collection. I cannot wait for you guys to see them. And if you want to make sure that you have priority shopping and 10% off your merch, you can become a Patreon member at patreon.com/FML Talk, where there is also 4 seasons of mini bonus episodes that you can binge at your leisure. I will see you guys next week. And as always, have a self-love cocktail on me. Cheers.